The rain drummed against the window, creating a monotonous rhythm in the silence that had begun to settle between Olivia and Jack. Nights used to be filled with laughter, talks about future plans, moments of closeness. Now he spent hours on his phone, typing fast, a subtle smile on his face, the kind Olivia hadn't seen in a long time. Something was changing. No, something had already changed. She felt it in the little things. The way he avoided eye contact, the masked impatience when she talked about her day, the growing distance between them, like a chasm opening up, while Jack made no effort to stop it from swallowing everything. "Jack, you're different." Her voice came out soft, hesitant, as if she already knew the answer wouldn't bring her any comfort. He sighed, eyes still glued to his phone. "You're imagining things, Olivia. I'm just tired from work." A lie. She knew it was. Before, when he was tired, he still smiled at her, still pulled her close, still asked if she wanted to share a glass of wine and forget about the bad day. But now he spent hours away, came home late, his cologne smelled different, and that smile that used to belong only to her belonged to someone else. Evelyn. She came into their lives as a friend of the couple, charming, helpful, effortlessly captivating. At first, Olivia didn't mind. Jack had always been social, and she trusted him. But little by little, Evelyn slipped into their lives in a way Olivia couldn't stop, first with innocent conversations, then with subtle jokes about how Jack was such an amazing man and how Olivia didn't seem to appreciate that enough. "I don't know how you do it," Evelyn would say, laughing as she sipped her wine beside Jack. "Olivia seems so fragile. You have so much potential, Jack. I see it in you." Olivia heard that and felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean, Evelyn?" Her voice came out firmer than she expected. The other woman just smiled as if it was all a harmless joke, but her eyes said something else. Jack laughed along, not realizing the weight of the words. Or maybe he did, and just chose to ignore it. The change in him came subtly, small shifts in his tone, the way he responded. Before, when Olivia asked about his day, Jack would tell animated stories. Now, he just mumbled, "Same as always." Before, he held her hand when they walked. Now he walked a step ahead. Before, he was a present husband. Now he was a stranger living under the same roof. And then came the first sentence that cut Olivia like a cold blade. "You're suffocating me." She blinked, caught off guard. "What?" Jack dropped his fork on the table, pushing his plate away like the food suddenly disgusted him. "Evelyn's right. I stopped to think, and I realized you're just a weight on my life." Olivia felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Evelyn, always Evelyn. Her poison had seeped into Jack so deeply that Olivia couldn't pull it out anymore. He wasn't the man who had promised to love her. He wasn't the man who had held her hand at the altar and vowed they'd be together no matter what. He wasn't hers anymore. The sound of his key turning in the lock still gave Olivia hope. Every night, she waited for Jack to walk through the door and be the man she had fallen in love with again. But every time, it was like a stranger coming home. He wouldn't even look at her, just tossed his jacket on the couch, loosened his tie, and headed straight for the bar. Olivia took a deep breath, gathering the courage she'd been holding in for weeks. "Can we talk?" Jack didn't answer right away. He grabbed a glass, poured whiskey all the way to the top, and took a long sip before finally looking at her. His eyes were empty, cold. "About what?" "About us. About what's happening to you." He let out a dry, humorless laugh. "What's happening to me?" he repeated, mocking her. "Do you really want to know, Olivia? Because honestly, I have no idea how I'm still putting up with this." Her chest tightened. "This?" Her voice shook. "You're talking about our marriage?" Jack downed the rest of his drink and slammed the glass on the counter. "I'm talking about this mediocre life. I wake up every day feeling trapped, suffocated. You always looking at me like I'm some project you need to fix. But you know what? I don't need fixing, you do." Olivia's throat closed up. She wanted to say something, but the words died before they could leave her lips. It was always like this. Over the past few months, Jack had turned into someone cruel. The words that used to be sweet were now bitter, cutting. The looks that once held warmth were now filled with nothing but contempt. And then, the worst part. She saw Evelyn's name flash on his phone screen. At first he used to hide it. Now he didn't even bother. He picked up the call right in front of Olivia with a smile she hadn't seen in ages. "Hey, baby." His voice was light, so different from the sharp tone he always used with Olivia. He called her baby, right in front of her, like it meant nothing, like Olivia was invisible. "Jack." She fought to keep the anger down, to stay calm. "You're doing this in front of me?" He sighed like he was bored and hung up the call without a hint of urgency. "What's the problem? You already know, don't you? You're cheating on me." She whispered it, like saying it out loud would make it all too real. Jack smiled. "Took you long enough." Olivia felt the ground vanish beneath her, a knot in her throat, hands shaking. She wanted to scream, to cry, to hit him, but she just stood there, frozen, while Jack grabbed his car keys. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He smirked, adjusting his watch. "Meeting Evelyn. Unlike you, she doesn't suffocate me," and he walked out without looking back. That's how it went, night after night. Jack paraded Evelyn around like a trophy, like he wanted Olivia to know there was no place for her anymore. But even after everything, Olivia held on. She wanted to believe that this cruel man wasn't the real Jack. Until that night. It was late when he came home. The stench of cheap perfume and alcohol filled the room before she even saw him. Jack stumbled in, his eyes red with anger. "Fucking hell," he muttered, tossing his wallet onto the dresser. "What happened to you?" Jack let out a bitter laugh. "Evelyn, that bitch played me." A sharp sense of relief stabbed through Olivia. Finally, he was seeing Evelyn for who she really was. "Jack," she took a step forward, reaching out, but he turned too fast, way too fast. "Stay the hell away from me," he shouted. And then it happened. The slap wasn't planned. It was pure rage, frustration. But it was hard. Hard enough to knock her to the ground. Hard enough for the metallic taste of blood to fill her mouth. Olivia's hand flew to her face. The cut stung, and she could feel the warmth of blood trailing down her skin. The silence that followed was the worst part. Jack just stood there, staring at his own hand like he couldn't believe what he had done. But Olivia believed it. And in that moment, she knew there was nothing left to save. She got up slowly, grabbed her bag without hesitation. "What are you doing?" Jack's voice was quieter now. She didn't answer, didn't look back. She just walked to the door and left. This time, for good. Thanks for watching. If you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. Your support helps us keep bringing you more emotional stories. Days later, she stood in front of the mirror, staring at a face she barely recognized. The cut on her cheek had healed, but the mark was still there, thin, red, a cruel reminder of everything she had endured. At first it was hard. The nights were long, silent, full of unanswered questions. How had she let it get this far? Why didn't she see the signs sooner? But what hurt the most wasn't Jack. It was realizing just how much she had lost herself, believing he could ever be the man she once loved again. The new place was small, but it was hers. For the first time, she didn't have to watch every word, every step, afraid of being humiliated. But freedom came with the weight of loneliness. Some nights, she caught herself wanting to hear his voice, not cruel Jack, but the man who once held her hand and said he loved her. But that man didn't exist anymore. "You need to get out, Olivia," said Hannah, her best friend, one night. They were curled up on the small couch, surrounded by wine glasses and pizza boxes. Olivia let out a weak laugh. "Get out for what?" "To remind myself how bad I am at picking men. It's not about men, it's about you. You stopped living because of him. He doesn't deserve that." Olivia went quiet. She had spent so long trying to be what Jack wanted, trying to prove her worth, that she forgot what it was like to just exist for herself. But Hannah was right. Jack had already taken too much from her. He wouldn't take anything else. Her first real smile came months later. She was at the little cafe on the corner, focused on her laptop, when a voice pulled her out of her thoughts. "This place has the best cappuccinos in town, but the owner's got a heavy hand with the sugar." Olivia looked up and found a smile, a genuine one. "I like sweet things," she answered without thinking. The man chuckled, taking the seat at the table next to hers. "Then you're gonna love it." William, that was his name. A man who knew nothing about her past, who didn't look at her with pity, who didn't see her as the woman who got cheated on. With him, she was just Olivia. And slowly, without pressure, without expectations, he became part of her life. Unlike Jack, he listened. He noticed the little things. One day, when she absent-mindedly tied her hair into a bun, he smirked. "You look beautiful like that." It was a simple sentence, but Olivia felt her cheeks heat up, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Time passed, and with it the pain faded. Olivia was blooming again. Her laughter became light. Her nights were filled with talks about the future, not regrets from the past. For the first time in years, she felt happy. But while Olivia was rising, Jack was falling. He never thought Evelyn would turn on him. The woman who made him destroy his marriage was now revealing her true colors. At first, it was subtle. Small demands, little complaints, the constant feeling that nothing he did was ever enough. But soon it became painfully clear. Evelyn never loved him. She loved what he had, the money, the status, the comfort. And when business started to go south, when the bills piled up and the career he was so proud of began to crumble, Evelyn ran out of patience. "You're broke, Jack," she spat, throwing a glass against the wall. "And I don't waste my time with losers." He stood there staring at the shattered glass on the floor, tasting the bitterness of his own poison. It was Olivia he betrayed. Olivia he humiliated. Olivia who stood by him when he was nothing, and now she had moved on, while he was finally getting a taste of his own disregard. Jack's eyes lingered on the empty whiskey bottle on the table. The apartment, once a symbol of status and luxury, now felt cold, lifeless. The floor was littered with crumpled papers, overdue bills, and empty bottles. He ran a hand over his face, feeling the roughness of his unshaven beard. He couldn't remember the last time he had a decent night's sleep, but that didn't matter. What mattered was the emptiness growing inside him. The door swung open violently. Evelyn stepped in, her heels echoing against the hardwood floor. "This place is disgusting," she scoffed, wrinkling her nose. Jack closed his eyes. He already knew what was coming next. "Evelyn, please, please," she laughed, tossing her purse onto the couch. "Do you think this is a charity? I'm not going to sit here taking care of some broke loser, Jack." His blood boiled. "I gave you everything." Evelyn crossed her arms, unimpressed. "And now you have nothing left to give." Jack got to his feet, dizzy. "I'll fix this. Things will get better. I just need time." She let out a cold, merciless laugh. "Time? I don't have time to waste. And honestly, you think I'm going to stick around and watch you sink?" He looked at her, searching for any trace of the woman he had thrown his marriage away for, but all he found was indifference. "You never loved me, did you?" His voice came out low, almost a whisper. Evelyn grabbed her purse, adjusting her hair in the hallway mirror. "Love is overrated, Jack. What matters is what someone can offer, and in your case, you've got nothing left." She walked to the door without a second glance. "Oh, and just so we're clear, the apartment isn't yours anymore. My lawyer already took care of it. Good luck." The door slammed shut. Jack stood there, frozen, staring into the silence. Everything he had built, everything he had traded for that woman, was gone. The next few days were a blur. The money was gone. The phone, once buzzing non-stop, now only rang with calls from debt collectors. Jack wandered the streets like a ghost, wearing the same wrinkled clothes for days. It wasn't until he caught his reflection in a store window that he realized just how far he had fallen. The man in the sharp suit, confident, proud, was gone. In his place, a stranger. Sunken eyes, an unkempt beard, the empty stare of someone who had lost everything. And then the only idea that made sense hit him. He needed Olivia. It took Jack days to work up the courage, but he finally stood at her door. His heart pounded, his hands shook. He had rehearsed the words 1,000 times. He'd tell her he messed up, that he'd been an idiot, that he should have never let her go. He knocked, once, twice. The door opened, and there she was. But she wasn't alone. William appeared behind Olivia, his hand resting protectively on her waist. She looked different, stronger, lighter, and happy, the kind of happiness Jack had never been able to give her. Olivia frowned when she saw him. "Jack." He opened his mouth, but no words came out, because in that moment, he realized the cruel, undeniable truth. Fate had already decided. He had lost her forever. Jack never thought hell could be so quiet. He stood there on her doorstep, his heart hammering against his ribs. Olivia looked at him, surprised, but there was no anger, no pain, just indifference. And that hurt more than any slap, more than any cruel words she could have thrown at him. But Jack couldn't speak. The lump in his throat tightened, choking him. He had spent weeks rehearsing this moment, picturing himself dropping to his knees if he had to, begging for forgiveness. But now, standing in front of her, the weight of the past crushed him. Then William placed a hand on Olivia's back. "Everything okay?" His voice was steady, protective. Jack's stomach twisted. He wanted to hate him, to see him as an intruder, a thief, but he couldn't, because William was everything Jack should have been. Olivia took a deep breath before answering. "Yeah, everything's fine. Everything's fine." Jack swallowed hard. The silence that followed was unbearable. I just wanted to talk to you," he said, his voice rough, almost broken. Olivia exchanged a quick glance with William before nodding. "Can we talk for a minute?" she asked him. William hesitated, but he trusted her. He kissed Olivia's forehead and gave Jack one last look before stepping inside. Now, it was just the two of them. "Go ahead, Jack." Olivia crossed her arms, keeping a safe distance. Jack opened his mouth, but the words wouldn't come. How could he explain? How could he tell her that every lonely night was a reminder of the mistake he made? How could he say that her absence burned more than any failure he had ever known? He let out a bitter laugh. "You're different." Olivia gave a small, knowing smile. "I am." Jack ran a hand through his hair, restless. "Are you happy?" Olivia didn't even have to think. "Yes, Jack, very." It hit him like a punch to the chest. There was no doubt, no space for regrets or apologies. He wasn't part of her world anymore. "I was an idiot," Jack whispered. Olivia tilted her head slightly. "Yeah, you were." Another hit, but he deserved every single one. He lifted his eyes, desperate to find even the faintest trace of the woman who once loved him. But Olivia was whole, steady. There wasn't a single crack that could give him hope. "If I could go back," his voice broke. "But you can't." Olivia cut him off. Jack closed his eyes. Yeah, he knew that. "I hope you find peace, Jack," she said, and for the first time there was compassion in her voice. Not love, not longing, just a sincere goodbye. And with nothing else left to say, Olivia stepped back inside. Jack stood there staring at the closed door. Losing his money wasn't the worst punishment. Neither was Evelyn's betrayal, nor the loneliness. His real punishment was knowing that Olivia had found happiness without him. And nothing in the world could change that. Jack never got back on his feet. Broke, friendless, and without purpose, he spent the rest of his life trying to fill the emptiness he had created. He bounced from job to job, woman to woman, but nothing could erase the weight of his own betrayal. Regret followed him like a shadow until his last breath. Evelyn, on the other hand, stayed exactly the same. She found another rich man, then another, and another. Her life was an endless cycle of empty luxury, but she never knew real love. In the end, she was just a woman growing old alone, surrounded by wealth that meant nothing. Olivia and William, though, built a life full of love and quiet happiness. No fairy tales, no perfection, just respect, partnership, and peace. Everything Olivia never had before. She moved on without looking back, and for the first time she was truly free. And that was the greatest victory of all. Sometimes the worst punishment for those who hurt us doesn't come from revenge or payback, but from life itself. Those who choose lies, betrayal, and blind ambition will eventually find themselves surrounded by the emptiness they created. But those who survive, who choose to rise again, learn that true victory isn't in the past, it's in the future they build. Moving on isn't about making the other person pay. It's about freeing yourself from the pain and finding happiness where it truly matters. If this story touched you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We'd love to see how far this story has reached.